This is an old story. When I was younger, I fell in love with a widow. I had just started college and quickly felt like I might have chosen the wrong major. I considered transferring, but instead decided to take a year off to study abroad. I had a great time during my study abroad program in a foreign country. Despite the initial language barrier, I made friends and created wonderful memories. When I returned home, I found we had a new tenant in our house. Our family lived in a single-family home with 4 bedrooms. We used 3 and rented out the 4th, which had its own small kitchen and bathroom, often to college students or newlyweds. To my surprise, a beautiful woman holding a newborn baby was living there. "Who are these people?" I asked, only to learn that the baby's mother, a woman in her mid-20s, had recently lost her husband in an accident. Just before the baby was born, the baby girl, who greatly resembled her mother, was incredibly gentle. My parents, having only had me and no other children, were overjoyed and even playfully argued over who would get to hold the baby first. The baby's mother, Emily, was taller than me, with clear skin and distinct features. Her forehead in particular was pronounced, adding to her distinct look. Emily apologized for the baby's nighttime awakenings, her innocence evident even in her apologies. "Crying is natural for a baby. We love kids, so just let us know if you need to step out. We can watch her," my parents said. The baby, still a newborn, slept a lot. Our family was very careful to keep quiet around the house, welcoming the new addition with open arms. Emily initially lived in a shelter for single mothers, but left due to the cold treatment from the staff. She found our place in a rush. During the day, Emily managed to find a job and offered to pay my mother for babysitting. I started getting to know Emily better as we saw each other daily. I called her Nuna since she was older, and we sometimes ate together when my mom was out. My mom was an excellent cook, so the fridge was always full of delicious side dishes. As Emily and I shared meals and stories, we grew closer, and I found myself developing feelings for her. Many new mothers manage to return to their pre-pregnancy figures, and Emily was no exception. I saw her on the street once. She looked like a typical 20-something, slim, and not what you'd picture as a mom. People say having kids young is great, but Emily felt trapped, unable to see her friends much. She hoped to reconnect once her child started school. I told her not to wait, offering to babysit on her short class days or free time, so she could catch up with friends and unwind. "You're too kind," she beamed. "I'm not ready for friends yet, but I'll definitely take you up on that offer, James." She looked so beautiful smiling like that. When Emily had to go out, she'd pump breast milk in advance. But one day, her pump broke on a workday. Without the internet or social media to borrow one, she was stuck. The baby, not yet on solids, and never having tried formula, needed feeding every 3 hours. She called me in a panic, asking if I could bring the baby to her workplace. I arrived, diaper bag packed and baby carrier ready. It felt odd, but smelling the baby's sweet scent made me happy. Emily worked at a large bookstore, looking lively and polite from afar. She excused herself to the nursing room, returning anxious after 20 minutes. "I couldn't burp him. I've never been away before. I'm so sorry. I need to hurry back." I'd never been in a nursing room, but decided to persevere for the baby. Holding him upright, a few back rubs later, he burped comfortably. I wondered how anxious Emily must feel working away from such a small baby. Resolving to be more supportive, returning from work, Emily said, "I was so relieved today, and I bought a new pump on my way home," smiling happily. "My parents were away at a reunion, returning in 2 days." Emily was so grateful today. She mentioned how overwhelmed she was, but appreciated that I trusted and took care of her baby. So she brought over some beer and snacks. I opted for orange juice due to breastfeeding, but I set up a little drinking session for James, telling him to enjoy himself. We had our first serious conversation. We talked about how it's such a shame the baby's father isn't around, how pretty our child is, and how Emily's parents, living far away, hardly get to see their granddaughter, which saddens them. Emily expressed her fear of raising a child alone, confessing that the thought keeps her up at night. I didn't know what to say, I could only listen to her. She said despite becoming a widow at such a young age, just looking at our child makes her smile multiple times a day. But then she suddenly began to cry. I comforted her by wrapping my arms around her, and she cried even louder in my embrace. She seemed so lost, hinting she had something she wanted to say, looking at me for cues. Her pitiful state made me promise to listen to anything she needed. She asked to stay by her side for the night, and I granted her wish, touching her deeply. She ended up living in my house for another 2 years before moving out. During that time, our child began to talk, sing, and affectionately call me uncle. I wanted to hold on to her when she moved out, but back then, being just a college student without much to offer, I couldn't dare promise to take care of her under my parents' watchful eyes. We never got in touch again, and I eventually met my current wife through a colleague at work, with whom I have 2 sons. My love for a young widow at 21 remains unknown to anyone. I sometimes think of her, but I try to keep it just as a memory, without holding on to the past.